UConn Nation, let's talk Big Hoss, Tarris Reed. You're Locked On UConn.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Little housekeeping. My YouTube support has been amazing. I'd love to have all my subscribers download the audio version wherever you get your podcasts. It's equally as important for helping the channel and really the audience grow as a whole. So if you can do me two quick favors. First, click the little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen. You should hear it go click. Then head over to Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Hit that follow button. This way, you'll never miss a moment of Locked On UConn, no matter where you are. I can't tell you how much your support means to me. It's everything. If you're tuning in from your car, transistor radio, ham radio, once you finish the show, please drop us a 5-star review. Good reviews trigger referrals for similar shows where we can get some new audience members who may be interested in more UConn content and not know where to find us. Today's episode is sponsored by FanDuel. As the playoffs wind down and the sports stop sporting like we want them to, this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. On April 17th, UConn got a transfer portal commitment from Tarris Reed Jr., a significant addition to UConn Huskies. Reed's journey from his prep career, from his time at Michigan, has been marked by steady, consistent improvement and impressive performances. Today, we're going to start a series of opening the show, breaking down each player on the Huskies, in this case of Tarris, with all newcomers and returners alike. We'll break down the stats, traits that make what make Dan Hurley and company think it's a perfect fit for UConn as they aim for a three-peat and look to replace the number 7 overall pick and the most impactful player in college basketball last season, Donovan Clingan. Let's start with his most recent stop as a Michigan Wolverine, his only stop in college. During his time at Michigan, Tarris Reed Jr. made a substantial impact. Here are some key highlights from his career with the Wolverines. Last season, he played 32 games. He started 31 of them. He averaged 9 points per game, showcasing a little bit of a scoring ability. Scored in double figures 13 times with 3 games of 15+. Some notable performances: a career best 20 points against Illinois, the Big Ten champs, on January 18th. He dominated the boards with 7.5 rebounds per game, leading the team. And I say dominates because, look, he didn't play 40 minutes a game, 25, 28 minutes a game, I believe he got. So he posted 25 games with 5+ rebounds, including 6 games with 10 rebounds. So it makes him a pretty big double-double threat right from the start. He recorded 3 double-doubles, and here's where they're at: 14 points, 11 rebounds against Minnesota, 12 points, 15 rebounds against Rutgers. And I feel like this is a big one because Michigan State, no matter how much we make fun of how they don't win in April anymore, in March, 15 points, 11 rebounds versus Michigan State and Tom Izzo. That's a big-time performance because they're a physical, rough-and-tumble team. Might as well be playing football out there. That's a monster game for the sophomore there. He averaged 1.4 blocks per game, protecting the rim quite effectively. So 12 games with 2+ blocks, including a career-best 5 blocks twice versus Minnesota and Rutgers. He's an efficient shooter with over 51.9% from the field, so just almost 52%. 10 games with 5+ field goals, including career best 8 field goals a game, field goals against Illinois on 10 attempts. So when he gets rolling, he can typically get the ball going. He's a solid free throw shooter, making a career best 6 free throws, but he is mostly, if we look that up, I thought I had that here in research, but I believe he's about a 65% free throw shooter career, but I'm probably wrong on that. I think he's actually worse than that. So look, if there's one highlight that I would say he's not great at is free throw shooting, but Samson Johnson got better last year. Donovan made a nice leap. And that's all last year. He had a career best 45 minutes in a double overtime game versus Florida. So the kid is in condition. He's a large man, 6'10", 270 pounds. This is not a kid who is, slim frame like Samson, who's more of like a rim runner. He's a space eater. He's got fantastic footwork, things that I think are going to be huge additions to UConn going forward. We won't go into as much detail for the 2022-23 season. His freshman year, he was a 6-man off the bench, averaged about 3 points and 4 rebounds. Shot 52% from the field, averaged about 13 minutes. I think he's going to get about 20 to 22 minutes a game at UConn. Before then, Tarris Reed was a big-time college recruit. He was number 29 in the polls, so that's touching almost a McDonald's All-American, 4 or 5-star-ish. He played at Link Year Academy, where he got some seasoning and played at a high level, averaging just under a double-double with 9.3 points and 9.2 rebounds and 2 blocks per game. Helped his team to a 34-2 record and a runner-up finish at the Geico Nationals. He is a St. Louis kid. His parents are hard workers, and I say that because what do we talk about with Dan Hurley and his staff? They recruit the players as much as they recruit the parents as much as they recruit the players. And this kid's parents, it didn't take me very long just to do a tiny little bit of research on them. They have phenomenal careers where they've worked their butts off to get where they're at. And that gives them the attribute that Dan Hurley is looking for, support system for their son. And now he's at UConn. I think Reed's game is built on his physicality and defensive prowess. I don't think we should expect him to give us, 14, 15 points a game. But if he's close to his 9 to 10 points a game next year, 12 points tops, I think that, contributing to our offense is where it's at. But his shot blocking, his rebounding skills make him the perfect fit for UConn system, especially as they look to replace Donovan Clingan. So let's talk about that. I think this is, I don't know how many baseball fans there are out there. The Yankees look pretty good the last couple nights for Red Sox fans that listen to the show. I thought I was going to come in here and be talking about a Yankee sweep and, put that into the conversation, but I'm not. But think about the movie Moneyball. I know it's dramatized, but just the concept of it is you don't replace. There's a great part in that movie where he's talking to his scouts, and they don't get it. They just lost Jason Giambi, right? You don't replace Jason Giambi with one player. You replace him in the aggregate. And UConn retained Samson Johnson. So combined, Clingan and Johnson average 18 points, 8 rebounds, and 3.6 blocks per game. What they feel is Samson's going to increase his power numbers and be able to jump. And some of those numbers will jump from that 5.4 and 3 rebounds a game to hopefully double that or even 40% that. So if Samson's around 8 or 9 points a game, let's just give him 10 solid, okay? And he gets his rebounding numbers to around 7 a game, around what Donovan had. Now you add Tarris to the mix where they both come in missing about 5 points and a block, so they can make a jump where they get in the aggregate to replace Donovan or even supersede what he did from a production standpoint and do this by a committee, because I still think Yusuf Singari is going to be used in a little bit too. So I really think the combination of Samson Johnson, Tarris Reed, in this case, Tarris Reed in this profile, is going to come in, get us 10 points, 8 rebounds. Samson Johnson around the same, 10 points, 8 rebounds. So now we're talking 20 points and 16 rebounds versus 18 points and 8 rebounds for the two of them together. So I think as a whole, this is what's going to replace Donovan. And I think Tarris Reed, just from his personality, things that I've heard from folks on campus, his ability to work hard, are exactly what UConn is looking for. And it's going to be a key aspect if they want to repeat in a three-peat for UConn going forward. Shot blocking, defensive ability, the inability to foul, just playing smartly. He only averaged 2.3 fouls a game, so under 3 a game in the tough, rough and tumble Big Ten. That's going to help him in the Big East because they don't call anything. I think he's going to help with their interior defense. And moreover, his offensive game is steadily improving where they feel like he's a young Adama Sanogo. So he's got a solid mid-range jumper. They're not going to ask him to shoot. He's made a few threes in his career, but similar to do that. So I think Reed's impact is defense first, contribute on offense to a certain extent, on posting and reposting and being a good ball handler, being a good screener, getting the guys free. Overall, Reed's transfer to UConn is a significant boost if you think of it in terms of how they're replacing each player in the team's quest for another championship. We're going to talk about a recruiting update when we come up after this. Hey everyone, Mark Zanetto from Locked On UConn. With a new baby girl on the way, I'm already preparing for sleepless nights and busy days ahead. That's why I need convenience of Factors, no prep, no mess meals. They allow me to focus on what's important, getting sleep and spending time with my family. Warmer, sunnier days are calling. Fuel up that fuel them up with Factor's chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals. Whether you're looking to stay calorie smart, increase your protein, or stick to keto, Factor has you covered. Their fresh, never frozen meals are ready to eat in just 2 minutes. No matter how busy life gets, you'll always have time for nutritious, great-tasting food. Make today the day you kickstart a new healthy routine with 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week. You'll always have new flavors to explore. Crush your wellness goals this summer with a dietitian-approved meals you can trust. From breakfast to dessert, stay fueled with easy, nutritious options. Treat yourself to restaurant-quality meals featuring premium ingredients like filet mignon, shrimp, and blackened salmon. Keep the kitchen time to a minimum. No shopping, no prepping, no cooking, or even cleaning up. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 and use the code LockedOnCollege50, all one word, to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code LockedOnCollege50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 for 50% off your first box. Make your life easier and your meals delicious with Factor. So we're back. We're moving on to recruiting update. There's a lot of excitement in the air with a Darius Adams official visit approaching. I believe it's on September 4th. Meleek Thomas listed UConn among his final schools. There's some other folks, Nate Ament, Braylon Mullins, and what these potential additions mean for the Huskies. Darius Adams' official visit is set for the 4th. He's a 5-star guard. He is not the same as Meleek Thomas. I think I mentioned this before. I really don't want us to get caught up on it's one or the other, but also just, again, going back to things that we've talked about in the past, we need to understand that these coaches are looking at things from a wide net. They have zeroed in on probably 10. They've offered 13, but they probably zero in on more like 6 guys who they feel like really could contribute from the jump. And this kid, Darius Adams, is one of them. He's a 6'4" guard. Again, fits the mold, right? All the guards we think about: Tristan Newton, Cam Spencer, Andre Hawkins. Andre Jackson was more of a 6'7" wing. But think about the guys that they're going after in the portal. Aiden Mahaney, he's like slightly under that, 6'3". Another guy, a wing that they went after, Kobe Brea, was 6'6". So they're trying to find these combo guards, these guys who can do it all, that are 6'4" and above, maybe 6'3" is like the shortest they go, because they do have an affinity for guys who can really get after it. Ahmad Noel comes to mind, 6-foot wing, 6'1", but he's a dog. So, like, that's the thing. I really look at this from landing Adams would be a huge get for UConn and adding another dynamic scorer to the backcourt. But he's a different type of scorer. He's more of a slasher. He's not the traditional catch-and-shoot kid. At least from the things that I've seen and heard and read, I think Meleek is more of the ready-made scorer. You can put him in your lineup and he'll get you, right out of the bat, 12 points a game in college, if not more. So landing Adams would be a huge get for UConn, but he's in the mix. Maybe they get both. I think that's the dream for UConn fans, is to look at this backcourt, which would be one of the most formidable in the country. I don't think either Meleek Thomas or Darius Adams is a one-and-done kid. They definitely need some seasoning. They need to get a little more meat on their bones. So, but in the meantime, are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Who's the other guy we're talking about? Meleek Thomas. Impact of a 5-star combo, right, where you get him and Darius Adams. I think Meleek is a lock, but he's has this in his among his final schools. He is an offensive powerhouse with a relentless motor, but he also brings that same energy to the defensive side. Some of it's a little misguided, but with the proper coaching, you can really kind of knock that kind of I don't want to call them active hands, but active hands that aren't really doing much other than fouling. His ability to put pressure on the ball, I think, is what they're looking for him to create turnovers without being a menace and creating his own foul trouble. So I think he fits perfectly with that UConn defensive philosophy. Offensively, we all know him as a capable scorer. We've seen so many different clips of him kind of pulling people off the dribble, acrobatic shots, shots from every different level. He's a 3-level scorer. He's a long player. His arms I think he's got about a 6'8", 6'9" wingspan. So if you add both of these guys, it would be just an incredible impact to UConn's future in terms of having that elite guard where there's that pipeline to the NBA. Obviously, we talked about this. Meleek Thomas and Stephon Castle have a great relationship. So I think that has something to do with it. Getting those, relationships matter, guys. I can't tell you how many deals I've won in my life just by having relationships, because I'm good at a sport or because I'm knowledgeable about a certain thing that has nothing to do with why they're getting the service that I provide or the technical expertise that I provide. So, in terms of understanding where you can go from a recruiting perspective, I haven't been in this situation in 25 years, but I'd imagine that if you're a kid that has pretty much the world is your oyster, you're going to reach out to individuals who have just been through it. So to that point, I'm sure UConn's also going to be looking to add players to the transfer portal once we get to that. So truly from a recruiting perspective, I really do feel like Meleek is 1, Darius Adams is 1A. And then whoever else we get, I know some people reached out to me and said, well, we don't really have any, guys who are recruiting that are tall, like, centers and forwards. Go back and look at our team right now. We have younger guys. Samson may go pro next year, but I think he has one more year of eligibility. I could be wrong on that, so double check me. But let's say that Yusef stays, Tarris stays, and Samson, if he goes pro, that's 2 guys who are 6'10", 6'11". I mean, there aren't many teams that have 2 and 3 centers and that are solid that play college basketball. They're either in the pros or they're freshmen and they haven't done anything yet. So I'm sure they'll look to add more bigs in the portal too. To have that aggregate departure with Clingan. So the front court I think is in good shape. I think the back court is where you get your most significant return on investment initially, unless you have a generational talent like Donovan Clingan. So we're going to talk about who the potential season opener is against for this upcoming basketball season, and then also talk about our new Football Friday show starting on August 16th coming up after this. I love sports. I love them so much and never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down and we get fewer games and the sports aren't sporting like we want them to, FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app, dream up a bet of any kind that I'm in the mood for. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com. Start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. And you're back on Locked On UConn. Are we getting a season opener against my alma mater, Sacred Heart University? I don't know. That's what seems to be the case, right? All the tea leaves are being read. I believe there was a podcast where Danny was talking about they were trying to work out the details. Dave Borges wrote something on the story. Sacred Heart has made a leap from the NEC to the MAC. They'll join Quinnipiac in a bigger league, so they're stepping up their bye games. It looks like, Sacred Heart is led by Anthony Latina, who's been with Shoe since 2005 as an assistant coach to Dave Bike. And the Pioneers' best finish under Latina has been tied for second in 2014, coming off a pretty strong season for them. I think they finished third. I think they were 16-16 overall. It isn't official yet, but the teams are trying to set up in a game on the 6th of November, I believe, December, pardon me. According to Dave Borges, this is close. But being a former Pioneer from 1999 to 2003, in fact, my freshman year in 99-2000, I was at a party with one of the players at Sacred Heart, and they were getting ready to play UConn coming off a national championship. Sounds similar? And UConn, I remember asking the question, like, what have you beat UConn? And he was just like, oh my God, he was a kid that was over from Africa, big guy, play power forward. I'd have to look up the name, Maybe I'll do that while I'm talking here. But he was like, oh my God, it would be so amazing. So he's like, I've known UConn, such a big brand. It'd be so cool for the sport, but also for the players. UConn put a hurting on Sacred Heart on January 3rd of 2000, 83-56. So let's look at that roster. Sacred Heart, Pioneers. Let's see if I recognize any names. 1999, 2000. Yeah, this is their first year of Division I. They were 3-25. They finished 12th in the NEC. It was not a good year for my boys. Connecticut, by the way, UConn was ranked number 2 in the country at that time. The spread was a 17-point spread. They obviously covered. It was at Gamble Pavilion. That gave Sacred Heart their 6th straight loss. Let's see the roster. I guarantee you I'll know this kid's name if I see the actual roster on this. All right, so real quick, the story of this team, this 99-2000 Sacred Heart team. I know this is a UConn show, but you guys got to indulge me being a Sacred Heart guy. Devron Johnson was a 6'6" junior transfer who averaged 12 points and 5 rebounds a game. Devron Johnson played 1 year of Sacred Heart basketball. Then he went and played football for them and broke every record of theirs from a football perspective. I think he had something like 20 receiving touchdowns at 6'6". Then he was drafted in the 6th round by the Cowboys and put on their practice squad for like 5 or 6 years. I played safety against Devron Johnson my last year of college. It was like playing against a grown man, and like if I was playing wide receiver against my son right now, who's 16 months old. It was, and I feel like I am a exceptional athlete for my size and height. He made us look absolutely silly. By the way, that guy that I talked to in that moment was, I believe, Max Yacono, 6'7" freshman. Yeah, this team wasn't very good, but I'll never forget that Devron Johnson. He was a monster. Really good player. Anyway, I hope it's Sacred Heart. That would be a lot of fun for me, and a lot of fun for some folks that I still know that work there. It's a great institution. If you've ever been, it's totally different from when I was there. It was almost like a commuter school when I was there, and now it's, people are trying to call it the Providence of Connecticut. Or I think more so, the president really wants them to be like Duke. But I don't think they're going to be in UConn's class in basketball. They do have some decent players. You have to think that this guy Anthony Latina might be in his last year if they have a absolute horror show of a season. But it's mid-major basketball, guys. You're one great run away in the conference tournament to getting an extension and moving on. So, God, just a close game against UConn could do wonders for this team. But just want to say thank you for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. But for your second listen, enjoy Locked On College Football podcast. Spencer McLaughlin gets you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron with discussions on the upcoming season and the ever-changing landscape of college athletics, including conference realignment, the transfer portal, NIL, new college football expanded playoffs, and more. Locked On College Football is available on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And don't forget, every Friday during the season, starting August 16th, we'll have a free-for-all Football Friday with the guys from the TNT podcast. Let's see. I want to make sure I get their names correct because I don't want to sound like an ungrateful person who is excited about having his football show, especially about a UConn football show. Yes, the TNT College Football Podcast with Pete. And I'm missing someone here. No, I mean, listen, these guys have been doing this for years. Really appreciate them doing this. They totally understand, where the UConn football is. And I wanted some help, to be completely frank, about covering UConn football. So these guys are going to come in and help from the TNT Football Podcast. If you're familiar with them, it's at TNT Football Pod, or at TNT College Football 1. Check them out, but they will be our guest hosts and eventually maybe take over the show for Friday on their own. for the UConn football. And I'm super excited about that. So maybe a pretty cool upcoming next couple months. We'll get that Sacred Heart game locked in. I think they're playing New Hampshire as well in the bye week games or bye game situations. Obviously, we know Baylor's a good game. Texas, Gonzaga, the Maui Invitational. They're getting plenty of off-season work against big-time teams. Might as well give some of the little guys a shot. For UConn, there's an opportunity for them to experiment with different lineups and see how the new players fit into the system. It's also a chance to build some chemistry, set the tone for the season. Maybe a strong performance in the opener will build some confidence and momentum as the Huskies embark on their quest for what? A three-peat. So this has been another episode of Locked On UConn. Remember, Tarris Reed Jr., Samson Johnson, Yusuf Singari, together in an aggregate are going to be enough to replace Donovan Clingan. I'm your host, Mark Zanetto, asking you to stay locked in, stay connected, make sure your toughness meter is always rising. And as always, go Huskies.